This video is going to take you through the 4.3b notes, which is still focusing on parabolas, but now we're flipping it and we're finding the equation of the parabola. So we're going to review a little bit of the information and decide, one, there's going to be a little bit of graphing here, but just basically to identify what kind of or what direction it's facing. And then from there, you'll know what equation to plug it into. As a reminder, you're going to submit these notes at the end, so just make sure you're taking good notes and that you submit them before the end of the class. So we start with this finding the equation, and there's two different approaches depending on if the vertex is at 0, 0, or if it's not at 0, 0. So if your vertex is at the origin, which is how else you'll see this, the origin, I will either say vertex at 0, 0 or the vertex at the origin. Then you're going to use the information to find P and the direction of the parabola. So if when you plot it, it's facing up, then you know you're going to plug it into the x squared equation, or if it's facing down. And if it's facing to the right or to the left, you'll know you'll plug it into the y squared equation. And then you'll make it positive or negative. So if it's pointing up, it's going to be x squared with a positive 4p. If it's pointing down, it's x squared with a negative 4p. If it's pointing to the right, it's going to be a y squared with a positive 4p. And if it's pointing to the left, it's going to be y squared with a negative 4p. I'll write that out again in a minute. Then you've got, if the vertex is not at 0, 0, you're still going to start the same way. You're still going to use the information to plot it to find the direction and find P by counting the distance between either the vertex and the directrix or the vertex and the focus, or it might give you the focus and the directrix, and you'll have to find the midpoint to find the vertex. And then the difference is that you're going to plug them into these equations here. So if the vertex is not at 0, 0 and it faces to the right, then this is going to be a y squared with a positive 4p. If it faces to the left, it's going to be a y squared with a negative 4p. If it points up, it's going to be an x squared with a positive 4p. And if it points down, it's going to be an x squared with a negative 4p. The best part, or the easiest way to figure this out, is to try and graph it. So some people get lazy and they don't want to graph it. They just want to try to figure out what it looks like in their head. And some people are successful that way, but a lot of mistakes are made that way. So I would strongly recommend graphing. It doesn't have to be on a coordinate plane. It doesn't have to be perfect, just to establish the direction. All right, so here we go with some examples. If we're looking at the directions, obviously it says to find the equation of the parabola with the given information. And then number one says vertex at 0, 0, focus at 2, 0. So first thing I'm going to do is plot that information. A vertex at 0, 0 means it's at the origin. And then the focus at 2, 0 means it's plotted on the x-axis to the right of the vertex. The parabola goes around the focus, so I know this points to the right, which means it's an x squared equation with a positive 4p. So because it's 0, 0, it will be x squared equals 4py. Now I just have to find P. P is the distance between the vertex and the focus. So if I just count those two spaces, 1, 2, I know my P is 2. So then I just plug that in. X squared would equal 4 times P, which we just said was 2, y, and I get x squared equals 8y. And there's the equation of this parabola. Now go to 2. Vertex at 0, 0. So again, I'm going to plot that information. That's my 0, 0. Focus at 0 and 3/8, which means it's on the y-axis. My parabola is going to point up, which means it's a y squared and a positive 4p. P is that same distance, so the distance from vertex to the focus, which is 3/8. So I get y squared equals 4px. Y squared equals 4 times 3/8 times x 4 goes into 8 twice. So y squared equals 3 halves x. All right, let's look at example 3. So same set of instructions, find the equation of the parabola with the given information. For 3, vertex still at 0, 0. So I'm going to plot that point. Focus at 2/3, 0. So 2/3, 0 means I'm going to move to the right 2/3, which means this points to the right. This means it's a y squared and a positive 4p. P is the distance from the vertex to the focus. So the p here, sorry, one extra scoop there. P is 2/3. So y squared would equal 4px because it's to the right, and a vertex at 0, 0. Y squared equals 4 times 2/3 times x. This time I can't reduce the 4 times the 2/3, so I just multiply that out. 4/1 times 2/3 would be 8/3. Now looking at 4, it says on the vertical axis is your y-axis, which means it's going to either open up or down. Your vertex is at 0, 0, and it passes through -2, +12. So the reason it says vertical axis is because I could actually turn this way and make it horizontal if I didn't have that piece of information. But because I do have that it's on the vertical axis, I know it has to open this way. And this is, I know I went off the grid, but that's -2, 12. So what I can determine from this is that it's an x squared and it's a positive 4p. Y would be on the other side of the equal sign. What I don't know yet is what p is, and I don't have the focus or the directrix to tell me that. So I have to take this point and plug it in as my x and my y. So my x would be -2. I'm going to do -2 squared equals, I know it's a positive 4p, so 4 times p, which we don't know, and y, which is 12. So then -2 squared is 4. 4 times 12 would be 48p. Divide both sides by that 48. And p is, this would be 1/12. Now I have p. I know it faces up, so I'm going to plug it in. X squared equals 4 times 1/12 times y. 4 goes into 12 3 times, and I get x squared equals 1/3 y. Okay, now let's look at examples 5 and 6. So what has changed with 5 is the vertex is no longer 0, 0. So it's one of the most important things to make sure you're always paying attention to, because that changes the equation that we're going to use. I first still have to figure out what direction it's facing. So with a vertex at 1, 3, 1 up 3, and a focus at -1, 3, and again, it goes vertex points around, or the parabola points around the focus, so I know it's going to point in that direction. This means it's pointing left. If it's pointing left, it's a y squared, but it has a -4p. So now, because it's not at 0, 0, I have to use y minus k squared equals 4p x minus h. The equation changes to include the h and k. Now this vertex is my h and my k, so I already have that part of the equation. I can even start there. Y minus k squared equals, we know it faces to the left, so it has to be -4p x minus h. And then I can plug in the k. So y minus the k, which is 3, squared equals -4. I'm going to leave this spot for the p because we don't know it yet. X minus the h, which is 1. Now I just have to figure out what P is, and P again is the distance between the vertex and the focus from +1 to -1 or -1 to +1. That P is 2. And now just put it all together. Y minus 3 squared equals -8 times x minus 1. And there's the equation of this parabola. Now we go to 6. 6 says vertex back at 0, 0. So we're back to not having an x or a k. an h or a k. I'm going to plot that point. So 0, 0. Directrix this time. Instead of the focus, we have the directrix at y equals 1. Y equals 1 is a horizontal line that runs through 1 or 0, 1. And I know my parabola points away from the directrix. So this is going to point down, which means it's an x squared and a -4p. The p not only was the distance from the vertex to the focus, it's also the distance from the vertex to the directrix, which is 1. So x squared equals -4 times 1 times y. So x squared equals -4y. Okay, next set of instructions or examples, number 7. Vertex at 0, 0, directrix at x equals 4. So back to vertex at 0, 0. No h or k here. 0, 0. This time directrix is x equals 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. X equals is a vertical line. My parabola points the opposite direction away from the directrix. So now this is a left-facing parabola, which is a y squared equals a -4px. My p is the distance between the vertex and the directrix. 1, 2, 3, 4. So y squared equals -4 times 4 times x, or -16x. Go to 8. This one says it's on the vertical axis, a vertex at 0, 0, and passes through -2, -2. So vertical axis means it's going to either point up or down. A vertex at 0, 0 passes through -2, -2. Now I know it points down. So this is going to be an x squared with a -4p. The vertex is at 0, 0, so I can actually say x squared equals -4py would be my equation. I can't count to get p this time, so I'm going to plug in again. So I'm going to use the point that was given, this -2, -2. This would be my x, this would be my y. So -2 squared would equal -4 times p times -2. 4 equals 8p. Divide both sides by 8, and p is 1/2. Now I take that and I plug it back in to the original equation. So x squared equals -4 times 1/2 times y. 1/2 times 4 would be a -2, so x squared equals -2y. All right, last set of examples. The first one says vertex at 3, 2, and focus at 1, 2. So if I plot my vertex 1, 2, 3, up 2, I know I have my h and k this time, so my equations are different. Focus at 1, 2, so vertex focus means this parabola points to the left because it goes around the focus. So a left-facing parabola is a y squared and a negative 4p. Since it has a vertex other than 0, 0, this is going to be y minus k squared equals negative 4p x minus h. And we can go ahead and even plug in for the h and k. Y minus my k, which is 2, equals negative 4. I'm going to leave a space to fill in that p when we figure it out. X minus h is 3. And all we have to do is count the distance from the vertex to the focus. P is 2, and I plug that in. And I get y minus 2 squared equals negative 8 times x minus 3. Okay, last example. And this time we're not given a vertex. So this is where it gets a bit trickier. You still can figure it out from plotting it. But what we are given is a focus at 0, 0 and a directrix at y equals 4. Which means my parabola is half the distance between these. So you can either cut it in half, or if you wanted to plot a point here and find the midpoint, you could do that too. But because I know it's halfway between these two, my vertex is going to be at 0, 2. And I know from here, I also know it points down because it goes away from the directrix and around the focus. So a downward facing parabola is an x squared and a negative 4p. The vertex is not at 0, 0, so it's x minus h squared equals negative 4p y minus k. X minus my h, which is the x coordinate of my vertex, and that's 0, equals negative 4. P is the distance from the vertex to the focus or the vertex to the directrix. Either way, P is 2. And then y minus my k, which is the y coordinate of your vertex, which is 2. So simplify this, x squared equals negative 8 y minus 2. So the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to not be lazy. Make sure you're graphing as loosely as you want. It doesn't have to be perfect, obviously. It doesn't have to be on a coordinate plane. But you want to graph the information that's given to you so you can determine which way it's facing and also find the value for P. Okay, that wraps up the notes for today. Make sure you submit them to today's classwork assignment, and you can use the remaining time to work on the 4-3B homework. Have a great day, guys.